Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this special podcast delving into the intersection of consumer behavior and the circular economy. Today, we embark on a journey to explore how the choices we make as consumers while immerse power in shaping the sustainability landscape both in the short and long term. With the urgency of climate change and resource depletion looming large, understanding the pivotal role of consumer behavior becomes increasingly important. To be a little bit more specific, in the short term, consumer behavior influences market demand, prompting businesses to pivot towards more sustainable practices and products. This shifts not only addresses immediately like environmental concerns, but it also enhances corporate responsibility and resiliences. Looking forward ahead, the ramifications of consumer choices extend into the long term, impacting the health of our planet and well being of future generations. By embracing circular economy principles, consumers can steer up towards a future where resources are conserved, waste in minimized portions, and ecosystems are safeguarded. Joining us today is Lucy Patterson, a student from Kenyon College, who is going to talk a little bit with us about sustainability and consumer behavior. Together, we will unreveal the complexities of consumer influence and explore pathways towards a more sustainable future. Welcome, Lucy. I don't know
Hi.
okay. Just to kick things off a little bit, could you explain to our audience how are you as a consumer yourself? Talk a little bit about you. What are your buying choices and all that stuff?
Um, I probably would call myself a little bit of an overconsumer. I think that I have some bad shopping habits, and that's definitely something I need to work on. I tend to definitely buy more than I need in terms of like clothes and just like things like that I don't need at all. And it's definitely a bad habit. I try to make more sustainable choices when I can, but I also sometimes don't have the money to do so. So I feel like I fall somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely, it's great to hear. It's great to hear that. Personally, myself, I think I follow under the same conditions, so that's great. Consumer behavior is a key driver in the shift towards a circular economy, and obviously the choosing of products, how you mentioned, if you're an over consumer or not, it will also impact on circular economy. Consumers influence demand for sustainable products, drive to innovation, to in terms of product design and product sell and play a crucial role in waste reduction and recycling efforts. So now to start to elaborate a little bit more, can you provide us some little examples of how consumer preferences maybe like influence businesses to adopt more environmentally friendly practices?
Yeah, so I think that for like when I think about myself when I'm shopping or people I know, it's kind of mainly what we buy is based on accessibility and like ease. So like if I'm shopping for something and I have the choice between like a more expensive product that I don't know much about that's more sustainable, more environmentally sustainable versus something that's easy to buy, easy access, I know about it, I'm usually going to choose the easier option. So I think that um yeah, I think for me it usually it's just easier to buy something that is maybe less expensive and is maybe more marketed heavily, um, which is obviously an issue. So I think maybe businesses, if they're trying to get people to buy more sustainable products, need to spread more information about their products and have some maybe work on their marketing so it can reach a wider audience. And cost, I think, is a big thing. I think just usually more environmentally sustainable options are more expensive. So, yeah, I think that most consumers would be more inclined to buy environmentally sustainable products if they were less expensive, if that was something that the company was able to do.
Okay, it's something very interesting what you just mentioned. To go a little bit deeper, but in the same path. The next question is, what role do consumers play in waste reduction and recycling
Mhm.
efforts, and how can individuals ensure that they are properly disposing of products at the end of their like life cycle, as we say?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think just specifically in terms of recycling, consumers play a huge role. We all are, at least here in America, we all have the option to recycle always. Like I'm looking in my room right now and I have a trash can and a recycling bin that were placed in my room by the school. Um, right in front of me, but I only have things in my trash can because it's just the whole process of taking out trash sometimes can be so time consuming, especially as a college student. It's difficult to have to do it more than once. So I know that, but I know that I need to be recycling and that consumers in general recycling is extremely important because that can play a huge role in um, helping the environment. But it just usually ends up for, I feel, many people here and maybe elsewhere to just kind of take out your trash one time, kind of throw everything in the same bin. Not really, it takes so much time to sort through and find the stuff that's supposed to be recycled. So I think that something that could help maybe make that process easier is it's more information about what's able to be recycled and what's not. Because I know for me, taking the time to figure out if something can be recycled or not sometimes is something that I don't have the time to do. So if maybe there was more obvious packaging or information on packaging about what is able to be recycled, I think that could play a big part. Um, but yeah, I think consumers definitely play a huge role in making sure that products get recycled as much as they should, but it's something that needs to be more heavily enforced because like I said, I have the recycling bin placed in my room, but I have no information, like it's never given any information about how I should be recycling or like what I should be putting in there. It's just in here and then that's it. So at least that's how it is here at Kenyon.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that you mentioned the topic about information. In
Mhm.
general terms, USFQ as well as Kenyon College, they have similar programs for recycling, and the problem's still the same. The
Yeah.
people usually don't get to like have enough knowledge to know what products go in which like
Mhm.
recycle bin or not. If it's a paper product, you need to throw it in that way, in that one or in the other one. It's more
Yeah.
of a false information, maybe also in the miss of this information cause a lot of trouble to the students uh, to be able to reinforce these recycling programs that the universities are trying to implement. So that's
Mhm.
a more like generalized problem, and I think it's more of a problem of a concept, and a little bit also on the culture that we are not like it's not usual to see people having a lot of this knowledge. So that will be
Mhm.
also a problem in terms of the long-term sustainability. To change a little
Yeah.
bit the topic, I want to make you another question. What role do
Mhm.
government and regulations and policies play in shaping consumer behavior towards more sustainable practices?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking I personally haven't had a lot of experience with government practices like policies or specific politicians themselves like impacting my like habits as a consumer. And I was thinking that maybe that's probably part of the issue is that there needs to be a lot more policy and awareness spread through politicians about these issues. Because I feel like obviously I see stuff on social media and I hear like politicians talk about it sometimes, but usually they're in the minority. And there isn't like a widespread effort across politicians to be solving this issue. So I think that there needs to be a lot more policy about specific practices that brands and companies need to like enforce in terms of like making sure that companies are being environmentally sustainable and are not doing things that are bad for the environment. Um, but I think that there just needs to be it needs to be talked about a lot more by those groups and but through the government. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
kind of my experience, what I've encountered.
yeah, and usually always this topic is very related with these carbon taxes. Usually
Mhm,
politicians only like go through this way to like try to internalize this external cost related with environmental problems caused by productions of several products. And obviously
mhm,
they try to use this carbon tax to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to promote innovation. But at the end of the day, there are like many ways to avoid these taxes. And obviously for huge companies that have earnings above millions of dollars, they it is not something that has a huge importance for them. That's why they don't
Mhm.
like focus on developing new recycling programs, or in general try to focus on being more sustainable in short and long term, because most of these companies nowadays are not sustainable, and this will be
Yeah.
a problem for the future, and not only for our future, but also for the next generations that are
Yeah.
coming towards us. So yeah. And the last question that I want to make you is, in what ways can consumers' feedback and preferences shape products design and innovation towards following a more circular economic principles and all that stuff?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen, like, firsthand, and maybe this is just mainly through social media, which I think plays a big role in everything we're talking about in the spread of information. Um, I've seen, when a certain group starts, like, boycotting a brand and kind of starts going against, like, maybe, like, exposing their practices, or, like, the things they do that are maybe more, like, environmentally corrupt and are, like, hurting maybe some part of the environment, or like some group of people or something like that. When like a group of people starts really speaking out and using their voice and fighting to find a platform to spread their opinions, that is kind of when I see the biggest changes, because obviously people are going to pay attention to the group of voices that's the loudest speaking out against something. So I think that using the platforms that we're able to spread information about brands is something that consumers can do, and like spreading information when we hear it. I think that, though, also consumers in general need to push for more transparency from brands. I think that many brands are not honest about their practices and do not fully like explain to their consumers how they're creating their products or what they're doing to make their money. Um, and I think that a big thing that consumers can do is press brands to be more honest and transparent. I think that if consumers come together, they have the power to get information out of brands, and um, it's kind of on them get to find ways to get brands to be more sustainable. Because if a brand is making money, they don't really have a reason to do it themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting what you just mentioned. It's important to recognize that transitioning to more sustainable consumption habits and consum and sustainable products it can be challenging for customers and firms in general, especially in a market where sustainable options may be limited or more expensive, as you mentioned before. So, however, education, awareness campaigns, and government policies can help overcome these barriers and make more sustainable choices more accessible to everyone, and make
Mhm.
firms like we're more like uh, try to focus a little bit more on sustainable programs in the future. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing your insights on consumer behavior and circular economy with us. It's clear that the consumer choices and firms' sustainable plans have a significant impact on shaping a more sustainable future. And we would like to invite you to comment down and continue this debate. Thank you so much.
Yep, of course.